What is up, guys? Ash and Jake from AJ Reacts here, and welcome to another video. Today we're going to be addressing the whole situation going on with Barcelona Football Club. We've got the allegations of corruption, match fixing, bribery, and God knows what else, because the investigation has been carrying on and on and on. For those wondering what we're talking about, it's the Negreira case. Now, pardon my, pronunciation. I'm obviously not Spanish, but I am a Real Madrid fan. And I think it's time, as a Real Madrid fan who speaks English, I come out and address this situation. First of all, we found out that it was potentially from 2009 to 2018. So we're looking at roughly 9 years. Then it's come out that it's actually 10 years. Then it came out and it was 18 years. And now very recently, when they raided the refereeing federation, we have found out it stretches back for 24 years. Okay? 24 years of match fixing, corruption, bribery. Right? Now, I have to address the situation because those scum are our direct rivals. They have been for many, many years. Right? And although I myself have only been alive for 24 years myself. So you're stretching it back to 1999. When you look at Barcelona's evolution throughout the years, up until that era, 1999, they have always been the second fiddle, the Borussia Dortmund of the Spanish league. And then out of nowhere, they started improving, they started developing, and all throughout these years, people have come out and put it on, the Johan Cruyff influence, and then you had the whole tiki-taka stuff, right? And then it came to Pep Guardiola, Lionel Messi, and La Masia, and all this stuff, right? Almost glazing over what's been right in front of our eyes in the past years, okay? Now, people have turned around year after year saying, oh, it's just Real Madrid fans complaining. And then it was, oh, it's just Atletico Madrid fans complaining. Oh, it's only La Liga fans complaining. But now we have seen it against almost every club that they've ever faced. I mean, we don't need to bring up the UEFA Champions League wins they've had, where you look back at the Chelsea game, where the most rigged game was to the point where Didier Drogba is swearing at a camera. You look back at their comeback against PSG. You look at the whole unbelievable 5-0 win they had against Real Madrid. Okay, those three are just the most memorable I'm speaking of. Okay, there have been other games where people haven't noticed because it's not just Barcelona playing themselves. It's been certain Real Madrid games or other rivals of Barcelona matches where the refereeing has just been shocking and people turning around, what is going on? And now this is coming out. The proof is there. You can go and find the proof yourself on the internet. Okay, I don't need to flash it across your screen. You've seen the proof. They are being convicted time and time again for these things. Okay, and all they've come out and done is not defend themselves, but rather go ahead and attack Real Madrid over and over again. Like this is Real Madrid who's investigating them, right? Now, Jake, I want your take on this. And then I'm going to tell you what I think really should happen, right? And I'm going to say it without any shadow of a doubt, okay? So most of you will hate what I have to say about the situation, but it's just how it is. It has to be like this in sport because sport, okay, needs to maintain its integrity. Football and its integrity is being questioned right now because Barcelona, to many people in the world, are one of, if not the greatest football club in the world, okay? And when a team right at the top is accused of all these things, I think you need to be firm and you need to be harsh with it because it cannot happen again. We're talking about 24 years, Jake. What is your opinion on this?
Well, speaking as a fan of a football team that themselves have been found for corruption and match fixing themselves, when we had that whole scandal from 2005 and 6, just a 2-year period of match fixing, we ended up having our titles in that period stripped and being relegated to the second tier of Italian football. So with that logic, I do feel that for the club itself, Barcelona, and like you said, 24 years of match fixing, corruption, until the final court, what have you, comes up with a verdict and what have you. But there could always be a little bit of corruption in there as well to try and get, a less sentence and what have you. But
Exactly.
I mean, for the club itself to be match fixing for 24 years, and this is coming from a Juventus fan here, right, who's had a bit of corruption themselves, that is just nothing short of disgusting, to be honest with you, like the club itself. And we're talking about, because I want to try and get one thing straight here, right, because I'm already seeing the players of that era getting heavy conflict from the fans and what have you. It's not the players that were doing the match fixing. Let's get that right, okay? But at the same time, it does damage their legacy of being a part of a club like that, where there was scandal for that period of time. I mean, let's be honest, it's not for every single game, because the players that themselves in that period, particularly during the Pep era, there were very good players in that team. We can't relinquish their quality. They were still class players. But if there was scandal throughout that whole time, it's not going to make them as great as what they're being portrayed as before all this came out. And like you said, Ash, we have seen small traces of this. You kind of thought maybe there could be something. You mentioned the Chelsea game. For me, the PSG game, because two of the penalties, just recalling from that, it just weren't penalties. Particularly the Luis Suarez one, where there was no contact and he just jumped in the air like he'd just been swept by a rugby player. And then just a thing, I mean, it might be a little bit of bias here, but when we played them in the Champions League final, I still, to this day, think that Alves challenge on Pogba was a penalty. Just dragging him to the floor. So there's traces there. But I think, really, the punishment that they should receive is, obviously a massive fine, but fines these days in football is just pocket change. And their titles within that period, so from 99 to 2018, should...
2018, yeah.
Should be stripped. Because if they were paying the refs to favour them in the matches, you can't do that. And this is coming from a Juventus fan here. They should have their titles stripped and probably relegated to the second or third tier of Spanish football, and the players on the likes of Xavi, Iniesta, Busquets, Suarez, Neymar, Puyol, Piqué, and Messi, it's going to affect their careers, man. It's going to damage their careers because, for most of them players, that's about 90% of their trophies. And if there was scandal involved and the referees were fixing, I don't expect anything less. Personally, that's my thought on it.
Yeah, you know what though, you said the players aspect and how they wouldn't have known. I agree that obviously they would not have known the ins and outs, but unlike Juventus players, and I watched Juventus in that period, Juventus players were not of the same character as these Barcelona players. Every time their players got fouled or they got touched or anything that would give their team an advantage, they wouldn't surround the referee, okay? You would not see Juventus players dive and throw themselves on the floor like they've been shot, okay? You wouldn't see Juventus players manipulate the game for their own advantage. Now, granted, you will get a few odd eggs, okay? But when it came to Barcelona, you would see players who have never dived before in their careers, turn up to that club and become divers within the first game there. You would see every decision be questioned by their players on the field. You would see them try to influence the game in every way, shape or form. You look at the Inter Milan game where they still lost to them, but you had the unbelievable sending off of Thiago Motta. That's all Sergio Busquets. Yes, there's corruption involved in the essence of the backdoor stuff, but Sergio Busquets has manipulated the game to his team's advantage. And that's not on for me, okay? That's just one example. I can't think of the amount of times I saw Luis Suarez do it, the amount of times I saw Jordi Alba do it, Gerard Piqué, okay? We've seen Messi himself do it time and time again, okay? I mean, there was Xavi, but there was a few players who I wouldn't see it from. And I don't think the integrity of Andres Iniesta's career should ever be questioned. I absolutely adored Andres Iniesta, and I think he was one of the greatest midfielders of all time. And I don't think he needs to be ever questioned. But you look at when they left the club, Dani Alves, for me, was the biggest scumbag in Barcelona. But when he finally left that club after they stabbed him in the back, he was a different player. He had different characters. He would not be the same diving around player. The same player would surround the referee and question every decision. I saw that alone in Juventus and PSG when he went to them. Okay? So when players start having almost a different kind of personality, okay, becoming pricks, I'm going to say it, pricks, yeah, for that club, you have to then also question them as well. Because if they're doing it for a reason, right? Which means there's probably been conversations between the Barcelona board and the coaches maybe, where it's been filtered down to the players. If you dive in this match, you'll get a penalty. If you commit maybe an odd pull of the shirt or a handball, the referee will not see it. Okay, and I find it amazing how all of this, okay, has started to, cycle down, as soon as VAR has been about. You just cannot hide it. But nowadays, you still get it in La Liga games, where you're not getting the same transparency you would get in Premier League games where, a check's ongoing, check complete. Just simple stuff like that. Replays of what's happening for the fans watching on the TV screens, okay? If they're at the stadium, replays shown on the massive TV board in certain stadiums that have them. You would not get that in La Liga games. The players are left in so much of the unknown, okay? And it always comes out after the game. We just saw what happened in the Liverpool game. Immediately when fans saw it for themselves, the refereeing association was attacked, and rightfully so, they came out and apologised, okay? And if a continuance happens against a team like Liverpool now in the Premier League, words of corruption, bribery, match fixing will come out. Because it's so transparent, it will come out, okay? And the reason why it hasn't come out in the Premier League, because we don't find out till after, in the La Liga, is why we don't find out till after the games, okay? And there's nothing ever done by it in the country. Now, we're finally seeing something done, right? And I'm sorry, when you've done it for 24 years, okay, and in that period, you've gone ahead and claimed yourselves to be the best squad ever, winning the so-called treble under Pep Guardiola. You've gone ahead and claimed to have the best player of all time, okay? The self-proclaimed best player of all time, Lionel Messi, okay? I think everyone needs to be punished for that. I think everyone. And I think jail time. I think jail time for those who were at the very top. Yeah, that involves the presidents and its board members. I think jail time needs to happen, because you're talking about heaps and heaps amounts of money, and they're not going to help it. When they're loaded like that, them being slapped on the wrist with a fine is not going to do anything. We've seen Barcelona being €1 billion debt, and they're still making signings. So money's not going to do anything to this club. I think jail sentences need to be happening, okay? And I also think that team, like you said, all titles needs to be stripped. And if any player has won an individual trophy in that period, they also need to be stripped. I don't care what you have to say, because in that period, we saw Messi break Gerd Muller's all-time goal-scoring record. Corruption and match fixing in that period. Stripped. Every record, every individual accomplishment needs to be stripped for the integrity of the sport. If this was Real Madrid, I swear on my mother's life, I swear on my life and everyone that is holy, I would say do the same, because the sport's integrity comes first, okay? If I ever found out that my club did this, spanning over 24 years, I would genuinely reconsider ever supporting them. I actually would, because I don't stand for that. The reason I'm a Real Madrid fan is because I love what Real Madrid stands for. Being the best, but also winning fairly. winning games utmost and fairly. Just very recently, we saw Nacho take out a player, studs up in the air, and I genuinely believe that reckless kind of challenge does not belong in football. And if he's given a 2 or 3 match ban, I would completely agree with it, okay? I want games, I want matches, I want leagues and competitions to be officiated fairly. And that means Barcelona, I don't think relegation is enough for this team. I genuinely don't think relegation is enough for this team. I think a team like this shouldn't ever cease to exist when they've done it for over 24 years. We're not talking about a few years like Juventus. We're talking about 24 years where this competition has been influenced. Forget the top. You're probably looking at certain teams who could have avoided relegation, okay? People who could have lost their jobs. People who live and die for their clubs, whether they're relegation candidates or not. Teams who get relegated. Players whose contracts wouldn't get renewed. People who would get attacked for certain performances as, staff and all that stuff, okay? And that's not happened. Okay, so I think Barcelona as a team shouldn't cease to exist anymore. That's my firm opinion, and I think we need to be that harsh. And if this happens tomorrow to Real Madrid, I would say the same, purely because of that. And that's why, guys, I think Barcelona as a club shouldn't cease to exist, and those are the punishments I would hand out.